Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Justin Cutroni. I'm the analytics evangelist here at Google. And with me is Adam Singer. Adam Singer is one of our analytics advocates. And we are here today as part of Analytics Academy to talk to you guys a little bit about the course and to answer some of the questions that we've been getting through social. So Adam's going to kind of play the role of MC, and we're going to kind of banter back and forth, and we've got a bunch of great questions that people have submitted. So before we jump into everybody's questions, just wanted to remind everyone that we're currently running the course on analytics for e-commerce at Analytics Academy. And we're really excited about this course. We have actually over 25,000 students from all around the world that are participating in this course. And Analytics Academy is a really, really important initiative for our team. Analytics can do a lot of things, and we want to make sure that everyone understands how to use the product. And so this has become a great way for us to put out materials to help users understand how they can use it for their business. And really, a critical part of that process is these types of events. One of the things I love most about Analytics Academy is the social component. We have a Google Plus community, we have a group, and we try to hold these hangouts to actually connect with you guys a little bit better and to answer some questions. If you're in the course, that's awesome. We're super excited. We hope that one of these questions is yours and that we get to it. If you're not taking the Analytics Academy course on e-commerce, you can still register. It runs through the end of July. So if you want to earn a certificate, you have to make sure that you finish the course by July 31st. So I think that's some of the basic things. Why don't we go ahead and get started and dive into some of these questions, Adam?
Awesome. So thanks so much for the intro, Justin. And by the way, I'm Adam Singer, the analytics advocate at Google. So I work with Justin on making sure that you guys get the best possible education materials, help materials, and also amplify a lot of the cool content blog posts that you guys create to the community. So thanks so much for joining us today. So I wrangled some of the best questions from the community and tried to put them together into what should be a great discussion. So Justin, our first question, let's start out with sort of a basic one. Let's say I just finished the Analytics Academy, and I'm part of a small team, and I'm looking to make the most out of my time as a marketer. I'm responsible for both marketing and analysis. What do you think my percentage time split should be between actual activities and actual analysis work? And then as a follow-up, if I'm part of a large team, how do you see that differing?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think I saw an article today somewhere about how to divvy up your time, right, and how to make room for all of these things. And when I think about analytics, I think about kind of it's not just analytics, right? There's lots of functions that we do within analytics. And some of those things are pretty lame and pretty boring, and some of those things are really interesting. And so if we can kind of reduce the lame and boring stuff, that's good. And I think the kind of the line is between reporting and then like analysis and answering deeper, more complex questions and kind of using the data to kind of explore. And so if you kind of can divide analytics into those two different activities, then there's definitely some ways to automate, simplify those things to give you more time, right? So that you can kind of get a chance to do marketing things and analytics things, right? So on the if you are focused, if you have to get some reporting done, right? Reporting is one of those things that it just chews up a lot of time, but everyone needs data, so it's important. So automation and the ability to kind of boil reporting down to maybe 1 or 2 tasks instead of 10 or 20 is important. I know one of the things that you talk a lot about, Adam, is dashboards, custom reports, right? Those types of things, if you can invest a little bit of time into creating those for not only yourself, but maybe other recipients of data, right? It kind of standardizes the information that people get. It's there, it's in their format, it's made, you only have to do that once. And then you can kind of like automate the delivery of that stuff via email, right? There's actually built right into Google Analytics the ability to have emails sent out automatically. So then you kind of taken that off your plate. And if you can leverage that type of thing, then instantly that part of analytics, right, the reporting side, it doesn't really become such a big deal anymore. And that's a really simplistic way to think about reporting. There's a lot of other different ways that you could do it. We have a lot of great APIs where you can integrate the data into automatic dashboards in Excel. And there's a lot of third-party tools that have been developed on those APIs. So there's like web-based reporting things. There's standalone software that runs with the analytics data, right? All of the things are meant to automate and make reporting a lot easier. So I think, that's one thing everybody wants to get off their plate. So if you're a marketer and you're doing analytics, make reporting drop dead simple and automatic so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and I think that's important for, a lot of times SMBs don't think about using APIs or tools to automate things, but really if they set that stuff up at the beginning, I think it's even more important for a smaller team to automate what they can.
Yeah, totally agree. And again, if you don't work with Excel or you don't work with APIs, there's so many different developers. We have a whole app gallery on the analytics site where people have developed apps on that. And actually, right inside of analytics, we have something called a solutions gallery, right? Where we have customizations that other users have shared. Right, there's shared dashboards, shared custom reports that, obviously you're not sharing data, it's just sharing the frameworks of those things. So leveraging those, I think, it's well worth the investment. So then you can focus on the other part, right? Then you can focus on like the digging deeper and the answering questions, right? So like no matter what you're doing as a marketer, like when you're creating content, I always feel like there's a little bit of data that can help you with that, right? So if you need to create content around a certain product category, right, or maybe a new product that you're running, you may want to go into analytics and look at the data on your site search, internal site search. It's a feature that collects what people type into that site search on your website. That can give you a lot of different ideas about maybe what are the topics that people are thinking about related to that product or that product category. And that can help then drive the content creation piece. And another great one is like the audience data, right? You could look at what people buy and then look at the audience characteristics and use that to develop ideas. So I think, when you talk about dividing time between marketing and analytics, get reporting out of the way, and then use some of the data to kind of inform that marketing decisions. And Adam, I know you use the data a lot when you're thinking about writing and creating content.
Yeah. So that's awesome. You started to talk a little bit about analysis. I think that flows nicely into our next question. A couple people on the forums had questions about this as well. So I love the section on segmentation when I was taking the newest Analytics Academy. And so, in my head, I was thinking about, back when I was a practitioner, all the different segments I used to build, especially for e-commerce. And I was thinking about obvious ones like, look at people who abandoned their shopping cart, right? These are pretty obvious segments to look at for e-commerce, or maybe some of my most popular product pages and see like what people did after that. But can you talk about maybe some of the perhaps not so obvious segments or high value segments specifically for e-commerce, either preset ones in GA or ones that users might want to consider creating?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, and I think that's like the most powerful feature in analytics because it kind of is a gateway into this other thing we have called remarketing. For people that have used Google Analytics for a long time, they know that like segmentation had a pretty big change. I think it was about a year ago where we started segmenting users and not just sessions, and that was a really big deal because it opened up kind of this whole new way to think about segmentation. And so before, when you created a segment and you said, I want to see all the traffic from search, paid search, or I want to see all the traffic from email, right? It just went and got you the sessions that kind of match that. But now if you can create segments where you can think about your users and say, I want to see all the users on my who have had more than 5 transactions. And this is a really different way to think about the segmentation of the data, um, because what analytics is actually doing is it's kind of looking back like at users and saying like, oh, you know, I'm trying to find all of the people that had like 5 transactions in the past 30 days or 10 transactions or generated a certain amount of revenue. And these types of segments, these user-based segments, are really, really important. And I think they're something that everyone should be looking at, because it allows us now the opportunity to look at our high value customers, right? And how you define high value might be a little bit different than how someone else defines it. Obviously, it depends on things like what the products that you're selling and the price of those products and the life cycle of a customer if they buy things often. And the reason why it's so important is like you really want to understand the behavior of those users. That like those are your really important customers that you want to take super good care of. So if you can understand what makes them special, right, then it's possible to think about how to encourage that behavior in other users, right? Is it, what channels do these users come through, right? Is it email? Is it social? How much time on the site? Maybe how much time do they spend before purchase? Do they buy products that are in related categories? So by creating these segments of high value users, again, maybe users that spend more than a certain dollar amount or users that have more than a certain number of transactions, kind of observing the data for that group can then inform other marketing decisions to encourage that behavior.
Yeah, I think that's a smart way to think about it, that not all of your users are created equal, right? You've got people who might be infrequent buyers, and then you might have your really passionate power users, or your just most raving fans who come back and buy the most. And I think there's definitely tactics you should think about for both groups, because obviously you want to bring the people who might come to your site once or twice or only buy one thing to start becoming more active and more passionate about your products.
Yeah, I think you just made a really amazing observation, right? It's like you don't want to treat everybody the same way, right? And so it's totally fine if someone bought a product once, right? But like, how can you then treat that user differently, right? How can you create experiences for them that are more suited to them and just not generic to everybody? And I think obviously we're talking about user segments. You can build them in the interface. One of the cool things about segmentation is that it's actually now integrated directly into another feature in analytics called remarketing. And this is a feature that I really love a lot. We don't talk about it too much in the e-commerce course, but you guys can totally read about it. With remarketing, what you can actually do is take that segment of users that you create, and you can actually send it over to like Google AdWords and use it as a remarketing list for a campaign. And now you can literally change the advertising experience that those people have, like on the Google Display Network, based on that criteria in the segment, right? So if the segment is users who bought products, 3 products from me this month, then you can create different advertising experience just for those users, right? And so I think that kind of is like, Adam, what you were saying. It's like, don't treat everyone the same. It's built right into the ad platform now, right? So you can reach out to them with a customized message.
Yeah. So going to our next question, and speaking of our users, we know the web is getting more complex, not just in time we spend, but number of sites we visit, number of social networks we belong to, number of news sites that we get information from, number of blogs we read. And so, we're seeing that the journey is getting more complex. It's not the old days of clicking a link in an email and making a purchase. How easy was that? Or remember when you could just run search ads and people would buy right there? Now users are getting smarter. I think this is a good thing. People are, searching on multiple different sites and finding lots of reviews. And so basically, that's why we created our multi-channel funnels tool. Are there any insights specifically for e-commerce that users should look at from tools like multi-channel funnels and tools like attribution modeling that can help sort of wrangle that increasingly complex customer journey?
Yeah, totally. It is getting more complex, and analytics, is kind of keeping pace, right? We're trying to make sure that there's enough tools to do it. I think the one thing that people need to remember when they look at these tools is that, there's lots of different types of campaigns now that marketers are creating, right? And obviously, some are designed to pack the upper part of the funnel and introduce people to the brand and to the company, and others are there to drive people to conversion and transaction at the lower part of the funnel. And I think really what it means is that when you're working with the data really needs to match the objectives of the campaigns, right? And so to some extent, when you use a multi-channel funnel or you use the attribution modeling tool, it's not enough just to think about things based on channel, but actually the specific campaigns within that channel, because channels are used for so many different things these days. Like email is a great channel to connect with people at the upper part of the funnel, help them understand your brand. With content marketing, people are promoting their content, their blog, video content through email, right? But also, email is perfect for the bottom part of the funnel and getting that deal closed, right? We're having a sale, it's a product related to stuff you bought before, ends Monday. And so I think every marketer needs to, when they're working with multi-channel funnel data or attribution data, to make sure that they're representing how they're using these different channels in those tools so that the data makes sense, right? If you just lump email together, you're not going to get the best view of what's happening. You want to split out like acquisition versus conversion, and then versus retention, right, after they become a customer as well.
Yeah. And as a side note, I'm loving email lately. I've actually gone through, cleaned out all my old subscriptions to things I wasn't reading, and I've been buying stuff from companies who do a good job, sending me offers that are relevant. So I think email is just such a great tool.
Yeah, you know what? For me, email is that type of thing where there's become so much noise on social where I want to connect to certain brands that I really enjoy. I want to do it via email, right? Because the inbox for me is still this kind of like very sacred place where I have some control and I know it's going to show up in there. And I welcome their messages, right? Whether it's something about their brand or what they're advocating, or if it's a sale type of thing. So.
Yeah. And when I talk to users, I think they see the quality of email as such a great channel, and that's why it sort of has still maintained its place in the digital marketing mix, and they see how high the value of those users are.
Yeah. One other thing to mention about MCF and attribution is the use of conversion segments, right? So in analytics, we have a few different ways to segment, which can be confusing. We have the regular segmentation that exists in all of the reports, and you can share those segments. We also have conversion segments, and those exist within MCF and attribution, where you can, again, segment, but you can start to do some segmentation around conversion values and transaction values and things like that, which is important, right? Because, again, looking for those, you don't want to treat everyone the same, right? You want to look for things that are maybe more high value, understand the multi-channel behavior in those cases, again, so you can then take better actions.
So it's great. We talk a lot about users. One of our users on the forum asked, in terms of acquisition, they were noticing that the highest quality users they were getting were from a very expensive source for them. At the same time, they noticed that they were able to get a lot of users from a cheaper source. Not as many were converting, but they were confused just looking at both sets of numbers if they should be spending more for the smaller amount of high-value users or the larger amount of perhaps not so good users, but still some revenue there. Do you have any guidance for someone in that position?
Yeah, so that's another great question, and it's so funny. I think this question really represents kind of the shift on where analytics is going and how it's changing. And it gets back to kind of, again, what you mentioned about not treating everyone the same. If you just have a singular session view of data, right, I'm going to measure the efficiency based on this one transaction, you don't get the full picture, right? So for those traffic sources or the customer sources that do cost a lot more. If you just evaluate the return on that based on a singular transaction, you're missing out, right? Because what if that user comes back and buys 3 or 4 more times? And likewise, for the lower cost sources of traffic, right? If a user comes, if there's a really high ROI because the CPA for that source was super, super low, well, does that person come back a second time and buy again or a third time? So I think this is a great area where, again, the user-based segmentation can really help you understand what's going on. So creating a segment for all of those users, for those, the transaction came from the high-value place, right? What did those users do after that? Were there additional transactions? Was there additional revenue, right? It gives you a little bit more insight into maybe not judging the return based on that, the cost for that one transaction and the revenue from that one transaction, but you can maybe look at the cost to acquire that customer and then evaluate the ROI based on maybe the 3, 4, or 5 transactions that they had after that. So that I think, obviously that's something that we want to make a lot easier in analytics,
Right.
but it's something that you can start to do now.
So moving away from pure CPA and also considering just the lifetime value of those users.
Yeah, and I was kind of dancing around the whole lifetime value. We don't have that metric in analytics, lifetime value, but you're exactly right. And businesses have been using metrics like lifetime value for a long time to drive their decision on marketing spend and how they calculate ROI. It's tough though.
And you can still, do that analysis in your own tools and taking the data offline.
Yep, there's other ways to look at it as well. We're trying to make it easier in GA, but like you mentioned, offline, there's a lot of other data sources.
Awesome. So here's another question, perhaps for more of the large advertiser users. So what does your perfect e-commerce dashboard look like to share with my CMO? And any ideas for how I can really jazz it up to showcase our team's awesome results?
That's awesome. The perfect CMO dashboard. I would love to check the solutions gallery, right, to see if someone actually has named something the CMO dashboard.
I thought we should put it.
Yeah, totally, right? Like we should totally get it in there. Although someone may have just done it this last second because the internet is so fast. So with the with the CMO dashboard, right? Like every dashboard and every report is really tailored to the recipient. And the one thing about executives, obviously, is they deal a lot more with the high level, broader performance of the organization and maybe not so much the details, right? So, but then every CMO is different. I've sat with a CMO and I remember I sat with the CMO of a major luxury automotive company once, and they wanted to talk about third-party cookies, and I was like, oh my god, okay. But I think again for executives like that, it's keeping it broad, right? So top line revenue, top line traffic sources, like what are the major channels we're investing in. I would also make sure to include trending, right? So it's just not an absolute number. So again, this kind of depends on your organization, but how are things shifting week over week, month over month? Obviously, I actually really, really like year-over-year comparisons, right? Because obviously that kind of eliminates some of the seasonality that can be seen in trends from day to day, week to week, or month to month. The other thing that I really love in dashboards, and this is especially true for executives, is targets. Where do we want to be? Where are we shooting for? And this is something I really wish we did in Google Analytics, but we don't. You can do this through the APIs, but businesses set quarterly goals, right? And everyone is usually evaluated on, did we get to this number? And so if I'm building out a dashboard, I want to include what is that goal and how close are we to it and how much time do we have left to go. So if we're 95% of the way there and there's a week left, awesome. But if we're only 65% of the week left, that's it. So I think that's it from a numbers perspective. If you're emailing someone this dashboard, like I would make sure there's maybe 3 to 5 bullet points that explain the data, like what did we do to cause this to happen, or if you have a chance to talk to them, talk through it, just to give them that context. So,
Right.
what's on your dashboard, Adam?
I'm with you. If you just send numbers and no context, you're just a monkey. So you need to be able to. That's where you add that your high value as an analyst or marketer. So that was a great answer, Justin. We're going to move to the lightning round since I have a few more questions left, and I know we need to wrap up shortly. So if you can just give me some quick answers to these last three ones, that'd be great.
Quick answers means I've been talking too long.
Lightning round means we're going to move quick. So I'm currently running tests on my e-commerce site, on my homepage and category pages, but not product pages. Do you think I should bother, or should I just keep tests at a higher level on the site?
Use data. The new enhanced e-commerce reports, which we're going to dig into next week in our Hangout, they will give you a macro funnel of where you're having drop-offs. I would look for where I'm having drop-offs and target those.
Awesome. Not mentioned in the Analytics Academy are competitor metrics. So I'm curious about, from an e-commerce perspective, is it as simple as looking at my competitor sites and seeing their products with the most reviews and comments, and maybe seeing if I should stock similar products? Or is there any best practices or any things you really like that I can look at?
Yeah, so I remember this question about how do I know if I'm stacking up with the right product line? I think site search data is a great thing to have on your website. Again, it'll show you what people are searching for internally. So if you have a lot of stuff that people are looking for, it's not coming up. That's a great way. One other thing that's not GA is we have this thing called Google Consumer Surveys. You can actually run a survey on your site and ask people questions like that. The other thing is you can pull the broader internet and ask them their interest in certain things. And that's another great way to maybe gauge interest in specific products you might be thinking about carrying.
Great. And just one more question, and then we'll wrap up. Site speed for e-commerce. So if a user whose e-commerce site perhaps is a little bit slow, they're on either an old CMS or an old web host, they don't have the budget to upgrade their CMS. Do you recommend trying a new web host, tweaking existing settings, server caching? How important is site speed? And
yes.
Any ideas to make it faster?
Yeah, so first, it's wicked important. Second, we have a whole bunch of site speed reports that will actually break down where you may be having speed issues, right? Is it with the DNS? Is it with rendering in the browser? And that can give you some directional information on whether you should take steps to maybe just optimize the HTML and maybe compress libraries like CSS and JavaScript, or if you actually need to think about infrastructure changes to make things faster.
Awesome. So, Justin, I'll just let you give our community a little bit reminder of what's coming up next in this Analytics Academy and what's on the horizon.
Yes, so I can't believe that was 30 minutes. So this course, our e-commerce course, is open through July 31st. Please take advantage of it. That means that we're going to have a group and a community here to support you after July 31st. That will go away. If you want to earn a certificate, you need to complete the course by July 31st. So make sure you get it done. We're also going to have another Hangout next Thursday, July 17th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We'll remind you via social. But Marsha Jung, who is our product manager for e-commerce, built the feature, is going to be joining us. We're going to talk more details about that. And don't forget, if you're having a little trouble with the e-commerce course, we have a few other courses on Analytics Academy. We have our Digital Analytics Fundamentals course, which is a great intro course to give you some of the foundational information you may need. We also have our Analytics Platform Principles course, which explains a little bit more about how the system works and can give you a little bit more insight into that as well. Above all, thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking part of the course. We really appreciate it. We spend a lot of time building these things, and we really want to make sure that you guys have the information you need to use Google Analytics more productively. So that's it from our end. Well, I guess we'll see you in the communities, in the forums, and in G+.
Thanks so much, everyone, and enjoy your weekend. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to post them on this thread in G+, or you can always ping us directly and via the Analytics Academy G+ community. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Adam.